We're taking in a lot of money as a country. We're taking it.
As his trade war tactics shift yet again.
Now warning that tariffs are coming for phones and consumer electronics, downplaying
at least 145% tariff on Chinese.
As the U.S.-China trade war heats up, the Trump administration is exempting.
It's done in a chaotic way.
What does Ray Dalio, billionaire, investor, and founder of Bridgewater, the largest hedge fund in the world, have to say about current economic conditions?
There's a financial problem. There's an imbalance problem.
I personally find this incredibly intriguing, and while he just gave a pretty intense breakdown of where he thinks the economy is headed. He says that what US is dealing with right now, like tariffs and inflation, are just symptoms of a much bigger issue. According to him, there are 5 major forces that shape history and economies.
There are basically 5 big forces through history that drive everything.
Number 1, the money, debt, credit cycle. So that's basically how debt builds up and eventually breaks the system.
First, there's the money, credit, debt, economic cycle, in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems. We're going to have a government debt problem. Maybe we can get into this.
Number 2, internal conflict, left versus right, and growing inequality.
The second big force through time is the internal conflict force. The left and the right, differences in wealth and values causing a conflict that we're seeing it changing our political order. So the first is changing our monetary order. The second is changing our political order internally.
Number 3 is shifts in global power, such as the US versus China.
Third is the great world order, how countries deal with each other. When there's a rising power, challenging an existing power, and now we are going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which is great conflict.
Then there's acts of nature. Think of climate disasters, pandemics, and things like that.
And the other 2 factors all through history have been acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics.
And then lastly, technology.
Is technology changing. And how they are coming together are the main forces behind this. For example, there can't be imbalances anymore in that environment.
He believes all 5 of these forces are colliding right now, and it's creating major instability in the US and globally. When it comes to tariffs, especially Trump's recent ones, Dalio says it's not about whether tariffs are good or bad in theory. It's about how they're being handled.
I think it's just a function of how well they're handled. You know, it's a reality that it's a desire to bring in tax revenue from that. It's a reality that we would like to build manufacturing and jobs here. This is a reality that's...
If they're done carefully and strategically, they could, in reality, help. But right now, it looks like they're being handled in a really chaotic way, which could seriously disrupt global economies.
How that's done, whether that's done in a practical way, whether that's done in a stable way, whether that's done with quality negotiations in which that's a mutual problem, or whether that's done in a chaotic and disruptive way.
Dalio says that right now is a very critical time because we're not just teetering on the edge of a recession, we're actually at risk of something much worse.
I think that right now, we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well.
He says we're seeing a breakdown in the monetary system, political system, and international system all at once.
We have a breaking down of the monetary order. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order.
He then compares it to the 1930s, right before the Great Depression and World War II.
Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again.
That's how serious he thinks this is. He's especially worried about the US debt.
The budget deficit can be reduced to 3% of GDP. It will be about 7% if things are not changed.
The federal budget deficit is currently at around 7% of GDP. And he says that if they can't get it down to 3%, we'll run into huge supply and demand issues with government debt.
If they don't, we're going to have a supply-demand problem for debt at the same time as we have these other problems. And the results of that will be worse than a normal recession.
That could lead to a collapse in the value of money, rising inflation, and massive financial instability.
And so we're going to be in a situation where if that storehold of wealth is in jeopardy because there's too much supply and demand and so on, and we have a monetary inflation, we will have great disruptions. And that could be like the breakdown of the monetary system in 71. It could be like 2008.
So what's the worst case scenario he's warning about? A collapse in the value of the US dollar.
The value of money.
Internal political chaos beyond normal partisan politics.
Internal conflict. That is not the normal democracy as we know it.
And major global conflict, possibly even military, as world powers clash.
An international conflict in a way that is highly disruptive to the world economy and could even be a military conflict.
But Dalio's not all doom and gloom. He does think there is a way out. If leaders can come together, reduce deficits, and avoid escalating conflicts, he suggests a kind of 3% pledge where lawmakers commit to cutting the deficit in a smart, bipartisan way, like they did back in the 90s.
3% of GDP, bring that deficit down. It can be done in a bipartisan way, the way it was done between 1991 and 98. I explained how that could be done, doing things together for the greater good. And then internationally on all of these issues.
If that happens, we might be able to avoid the worst of it and come out stronger. He's got a new book coming out called How Countries Go Broke.
Your book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle.
And honestly, I don't think the timing could be better. I really look forward to reading it. Now, what do you think about these tariffs? Are they the necessary evil or are they a disaster awaiting to happen? Let me know in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.